I need to resign.
I refuse to accept your resignation.
But I have to.
No, stay.
She planned to quit after a night with her CEO, but the billionaire refused to let her go. I refuse to accept your resignation. Maya froze, the carefully crafted letter trembling in her hand as she stared at Dominic Meridian across his massive mahogany desk. The morning sunlight streaming through the floor-to-ceiling windows of his penthouse office illuminated the determination in his steel blue eyes. "You don't have a choice," she said, her voice steadier than she felt. "Last night was a mistake. One I won't let destroy 15 years of building my reputation." Dominic rose slowly, his imposing 6'3" frame casting a shadow as he circled the desk. "A mistake? Is that what you call what happened between us? What would you call sleeping with a client?" Maya challenged, taking a step back. "Professional suicide? I'd call it inevitable," he said, his voice dropping to that intimate tone that had undone her defenses the night before. "I'd call it the beginning, not the end." Maya clutched her designer portfolio tighter, a shield between them. "I've worked too hard to be reduced to the black woman who slept her way to success. I won't be that story, Dominic. Not even for you. And I won't let you walk away because you're afraid of what others might think," he countered, stopping just inches from her. "Not when we both know this is about so much more than one night. Have you ever wanted something so badly it terrified you? Have you built walls so high to protect yourself that they became your prison? What would you risk for a chance at the love you truly deserve? My beautiful queens, listen to me. We've been conditioned to believe we must choose between professional respect and personal fulfillment, between our ambitions and our hearts. They tell us a powerful black woman can have the boardroom or the bedroom, but never both on her own terms. For too long, we've accepted this false choice, building fortresses around our hearts in the name of protection, sacrificing joy on the altar of respectability. But what if the most revolutionary act is refusing to choose? What if true power lies not in walls but in the courage to stand unapologetically in your wholeness? The world will always have something to say about a woman who dares to claim everything she deserves. Let them talk. Your happiness is not up for their approval. 1 year later, the whispers rippled through the ballroom as Maya Donovan entered on Dominic Meridian's arm. The crystal chandeliers of Atlanta's Business Leadership Gala cast a golden glow across her copper-toned skin, highlighting the quiet confidence in her stride. At 43, she commanded attention in a way that had nothing to do with the billionaire beside her and everything to do with the power she'd claimed for herself. Well, came a voice dripping with false sweetness. If it isn't Atlanta's most resourceful event planner. Vivian Porter, Maya's longtime rival, stood blocking their path, champagne flute dangling from manicured fingers. I always wondered how Crowning Touch Events landed the exclusive Meridian contract. Now we all know. The room seemed to still, conversations faltering as heads turned toward the confrontation. Maya felt Dominic tense beside her, ready to defend her, but she placed a gentle hand on his arm. This was her battle. "Vivian," Maya replied, her voice carrying just enough to ensure the onlookers missed nothing. "I've always admired how you confuse a woman's competence with her romantic choices. It must be exhausting to believe we can't earn our success through talent alone." Vivian's smile froze. "I'm just saying what everyone's thinking, darling. Sleeping with clients is certainly one way to climb." Maya stepped closer, her voice dropping to an intimate volume that somehow commanded more attention than a shout. 1 year ago, I would have run from this moment, worried what people like you might say. But that was before I learned what true power looks like. But how did Maya transform from a woman ready to resign to protect her reputation to someone who could stand proudly in her truth? The journey began the morning after everything changed. Maya Donovan stared at her reflection in the bathroom mirror of the Meridian Group's executive floor, barely recognizing the woman looking back at her. At 43, she'd spent 20 years building her reputation as one of Atlanta's most respected event planners, only to find herself here, straightening her designer dress after an impulsive night with her new client, Billionaire CEO Dominic Meridian. "What were you thinking?" she whispered to herself, smoothing her locks back into place. She hadn't been thinking, that was the problem. After months of intense work planning the launch of Meridian's new luxury hotel chain, weeks of late nights and charged moments across conference room tables, they'd finally given in to the tension between them. One celebratory drink after the successful launch party had turned into a night that left her breathless, vulnerable, and completely terrified. Maya had built her company, Crowning Touch Events, from nothing after her divorce 15 years ago. She'd raised her daughter alone, put her through college, and never once compromised her principles. She didn't mix business with pleasure. She didn't risk her professional reputation. And she certainly didn't fall into bed with clients, especially not powerful white men who could destroy everything she'd built with a single phone call. This ends now, she decided, squaring her shoulders. She would resign from the Meridian account today. The launch was complete. She could recommend another planner for future events. It was the only professional choice. When she emerged from the bathroom, Dominic was waiting, leaning against his office doorway. At 48, he carried his success with an easy confidence that had initially drawn her to him. That and the unexpected depth she glimpsed beneath his polished exterior during their late-night planning sessions. Running away, Maya? His voice was low, intimate in a way that made her pulse quicken despite her resolve. Being practical, she corrected, keeping her voice steady. Last night was a mistake, Dominic. We both know that. Do we? He stepped closer, his blue eyes searching hers. Because I've never been more certain of anything in my life. Maya took a deliberate step back. I'm resigning from your account. I'll recommend several excellent planners who can handle your future events. Something flashed in his eyes. Surprise, then determination. I refuse to accept your resignation. You don't have a choice, she said firmly. My contract allows for. I'm not talking about contracts, Dominic interrupted. I'm talking about us. What happened between us wasn't just physical, Maya, and you know it. There is no us, she insisted, though the words felt hollow even to her own ears. There's you, billionaire CEO with everything at his fingertips. And there's me. A woman who spent 15 years building a business that could be destroyed by whispers of impropriety. Is that what you think of me? His voice softened. That I'd risk what you've built? Before she could answer, his assistant appeared at the end of the hallway. Mr. Meridian, your 9 o'clock is waiting. Dominic never took his eyes off Maya. Tell them I'll be 10 minutes late. When they were alone again, he stepped closer. One dinner. Tonight. Not as client and planner. Just Dominic and Maya. After that, if you still want to walk away, I won't stop you. Maya knew she should refuse. The sensible choice was clear. But something in his eyes, a vulnerability she'd glimpsed only in their most unguarded moments, made her hesitate. One dinner, she agreed finally. And then we're done. His smile was slow, confident. We'll see. Back in her downtown office, Maya stared at the resignation letter on her computer screen. The cursor blinked accusingly, waiting for her to print the document that would sever her professional ties with Dominic Meridian. With a frustrated sigh, she closed the file without printing it. She'd wait until after dinner. One last conversation to ensure a clean break. Her assistant Tiana knocked lightly on the door frame. Your 2 o'clock canceled, but you've got 3 messages from the Peachtree Women's Foundation about their fundraiser next month. Maya nodded, grateful for the distraction. Thanks, Tiana. I'll call them back this afternoon. Tiana lingered, studying her boss with knowing eyes. Everything okay? You seem distracted. Just tired, Maya lied. The Meridian launch was a big project. Tiana hummed skeptically. A big success is what it was. I heard Mr. Meridian himself couldn't stop singing your praises. Maya felt heat rise to her cheeks and busied herself with papers on her desk. That's what we aim for. Client satisfaction. Client satisfaction, Tiana repeated with a barely suppressed smile. Is that what we're calling it now? Tiana, Maya warned, though there was no real heat in her voice. I'm just saying the man looks at you like you hung the moon. And don't think I didn't notice you checking your phone every 5 minutes during the launch party when he was talking to you. Maya sighed. Was she that transparent? It's complicated. It always is. Tiana agreed, her expression softening. But complicated doesn't always mean wrong. After Tiana left, Maya's phone rang with her daughter's ringtone. Zora always seemed to have a sixth sense for when her mother was in turmoil. "Hey baby," Maya answered, trying to sound normal. "Mom, you sound distracted. Everything okay?" Maya smiled at her daughter's perceptiveness. At 23, Zora was finishing her master's degree in education, brilliant and insightful in ways that made Maya's heart swell with pride. "Just getting ready to go out," Maya said, deliberately casual. "Out? Like, on a date?" Zora's voice rose with interest. "With who?" Maya hesitated. "It's complicated." "Oh my God. It's him, isn't it? The hotel guy. I knew it. The way you talked about him when you called after the launch." "Zora," Maya interrupted. "It's just dinner." Her daughter hummed skeptically. "Just dinner with a man you've been working closely with for months, who you described as surprisingly thoughtful, and not what I expected." Maya sighed. When had her daughter become so perceptive about her love life? "It's a bad idea. I'm actually planning to end our professional relationship." "Why?" Zora challenged. "Because you're afraid?" "Because I'm practical," Maya corrected. "I've worked too hard to risk my reputation on." "On what, Mom? Happiness? Connection? It's been 15 years since Daddy left. How long are you going to punish yourself for his mistakes?" The question landed like a physical blow. "This isn't about your father, isn't it?" Zora's voice softened. "You've spent my entire adult life making sure I had everything I needed. Maybe it's time you thought about what you need." After they hung up, Maya stared at her reflection in the small mirror she kept in her desk drawer. Her daughter's words echoed in her mind. Was she really still punishing herself for Marcus's betrayal? For the humiliation of discovering her husband's affair with his 25-year-old assistant? For the whispers that had followed her through Atlanta's social circles, suggesting she'd somehow failed to keep her man interested? The memory of that time still had the power to sting. She'd been 28, building her fledgling business while raising an 8-year-old daughter, when she discovered Marcus's betrayal. The divorce had been quick but brutal. Marcus had walked away with most of their savings, leaving Maya to rebuild from scratch. She'd thrown herself into her work, determined to create a stable life for Zora and prove to herself that she didn't need a man to succeed. And she had succeeded. Crowning Touch Events was now one of Atlanta's premier event planning companies, with a client list that included the city's elite. She'd put Zora through college without financial strain. She owned her home outright. By any measure, Maya Donovan had won. So why did the prospect of dinner with Dominic Meridian make her feel like she was standing on the edge of a cliff? At 7 o'clock, Maya stood before her bedroom mirror, second-guessing her outfit choice for the third time. The deep purple wrap dress complemented her skin tone and fell just below her knees. Elegant but not overtly seductive. She'd chosen it deliberately, a silent statement that this was just dinner, nothing more. The doorbell rang, sending a jolt of nervous energy through her body. Taking a deep breath, she went to answer it. Dominic stood on her porch, more casually dressed than she'd ever seen him, in dark jeans and a simple button-down shirt. Without his usual power suit, he looked more approachable, more human. "You look beautiful," he said simply. "Thank you. You clean up nicely yourself." His smile was warm as he offered his arm. "Shall we?" Instead of the sleek luxury car she expected, a vintage Mustang convertible sat in her driveway. "This is yours?" she asked, surprised. "My first major purchase when my tech company went public," he admitted. "Before the hotels, before the real estate empire. Just a boy from South Boston who finally had enough money to buy his dream car." The casual revelation of his roots surprised her. In all their conversations, he'd never mentioned growing up in South Boston, a working-class neighborhood far removed from the privilege she'd assumed he was born into. As they drove, the warm spring air whipping around them, Maya felt something loosen in her chest. For the first time in months, maybe years, she wasn't thinking about client lists or profit margins or her carefully constructed image. She was simply present, alive in the moment. Instead of the exclusive restaurant she expected, Dominic parked outside a small, unassuming building in a neighborhood she didn't immediately recognize. "Where are we?" she asked as he came around to open her door. "Patience," he said with a smile that made her heart skip. "Trust me." The building turned out to house a small, family-owned Italian restaurant with just 12 tables. The elderly woman who greeted them embraced Dominic like a son. "Mrs. Rossi," he said warmly. "This is Maya." The woman's eyes sparkled as she looked Maya over. "Well now, she's even prettier than you said, Dominic." Maya raised an eyebrow at him as they were led to a corner table. "You talked about me?" "Hard not to," he admitted, pulling out her chair. "You've been occupying my thoughts for months." Over dishes of the most authentic Italian cuisine Maya had tasted outside of her trip to Rome years ago, Dominic revealed pieces of himself she'd never glimpsed in their professional interactions. How he'd grown up in a blue-collar family in South Boston, his father a dock worker who died young. How he'd worked his way through MIT on scholarships and part-time jobs. How his first business had failed spectacularly before he found success. "Why hotels?" Maya asked as they shared a tiramisu that melted on her tongue. "My mother cleaned rooms at the Fairmont in Boston," he said, his expression softening with memory. "She'd come home with stories about the people who stayed there. Celebrities, business tycoons, foreign dignitaries. I used to imagine what it would be like to be a guest instead of the son of the woman changing the sheets." He looked up, meeting her eyes. "When I made my first million, I took her to stay in the presidential suite. Ordered room service, the works. The look on her face when she realized she didn't have to make the bed in the morning. I've been chasing that feeling ever since." Maya felt something shift inside her. A wall crumbling that she hadn't even realized she'd built. "She must be very proud of you. She passed before the hotels," he said quietly. "But I like to think she knows." On impulse, Maya reached across the table, covering his hand with hers. "She knows." The drive back to her house was quiet, a comfortable silence settling between them. When he walked her to her door, Maya found herself reluctant for the evening to end. "Thank you for dinner," she said, lingering on her porch. "It wasn't what I expected." "I get the feeling people have been giving you exactly what you expect for a long time," Dominic said, stepping closer. "Maybe that's the problem." Before she could respond, he leaned in, his lips meeting hers in a kiss that was both gentle and insistent. Unlike the urgent passion of the night before, this was a question, an invitation. When they parted, Maya found herself breathless. "Dominic, I still want to resign?" he finished for her, his eyes searching hers. The practical answer was yes. The safe answer was yes. But standing there, the taste of him still on her lips, Maya couldn't bring herself to say it. "I don't know what I want," she admitted finally. His smile was gentle. "That's a start. If you've ever had to choose between protecting your heart and taking a risk on love, hit that like button right now. Because sometimes the hardest battles we fight are with our own fears." The next morning, Maya arrived at her office to find her assistant, Tiana, waiting with an expression that mixed concern and curiosity. "There's a delivery for you," she said, gesturing to Maya's office. "A big one." Inside, Maya found her desk covered in gardenias, her favorite flower, though she couldn't remember ever mentioning that to Dominic. Among the blooms sat a small box and a note. "For the woman who orchestrates perfection for everyone else. Perhaps it's time someone did the same for you. The box holds a key to my lake house. 3 days. No phones, no clients, no expectations. Just us, getting to know each other away from prying eyes. Say yes. D." Maya sank into her chair, the scent of gardenias enveloping her. 3 days alone with Dominic. Away from Atlanta, away from watchful eyes and wagging tongues. The thought was both terrifying and exhilarating. "Girl, what did you do?" Tiana asked from the doorway, eyes wide at the floral display. "Something either very smart or very stupid," Maya admitted. "Based on those flowers, I'm voting smart," Tiana said with a grin. "That man is smitten." "That man is also one of our biggest clients," Maya reminded her. Tiana's expression grew serious. Maya, I've worked for you for 8 years. I've seen you build this company with nothing but grit and excellence. You've earned the right to be happy. Happiness and business don't mix, Maya said, repeating the mantra that had guided her since her divorce. Says who? Tiana challenged. The ex who cheated on you? The society matrons who whispered behind your back? Or is it just the voice in your head that's afraid to trust again? Maya stared at her assistant, startled by her directness. I'm sorry, Tiana said quickly. That was out of line. No, Maya said slowly. It wasn't. It was exactly what I needed to hear. After Tiana left, Maya picked up her phone and typed a simple message. Yes. 6 months earlier, the first time Donovan met Dominic Meridian, she'd been thoroughly unimpressed. She'd arrived at the Meridian Group headquarters for what she thought was a routine consultation about event planning for their annual charity gala. Instead, she'd been kept waiting for 45 minutes before being ushered into a conference room where Dominic was in the middle of a heated phone call, barely acknowledging her presence. I don't care what the zoning board says, he was saying, his back to her as he stared out at the Atlanta skyline. We're not changing the design. Make it happen. He hung up without saying goodbye and turned, seeming surprised to find her there despite his assistant announcing her moments before. Ms. Donovan, he said, extending his hand. Dominic Meridian. Sorry about that. It's Mrs. actually, she corrected automatically, her handshake firm and professional. And I understand. Time is money. Something flickered in his eyes. Interest, perhaps, at her directness. Indeed it is. Which is why I'm hoping you can help us with something more significant than our annual gala. He explained that the Meridian Group was launching a new luxury hotel chain, with the flagship property opening in Atlanta in 6 months. They needed an event planner who could create an unforgettable launch experience, something that would generate buzz in the hospitality industry and position the new brand as a must-stay destination. Why me? Maya asked bluntly. There are larger firms with more experience in hotel launches. Because I've attended 3 events you've planned, he replied. The Peachtree Women's Foundation fundraiser, the Atlanta Urban League Gala, and my friend James Wilson's wedding. Each one was flawless, distinctive, and captured exactly the right tone. You don't just execute events, Mrs. Donovan. You tell stories. Maya was surprised by his answer, and by the fact that he'd noticed her work so specifically. I appreciate that, Mr. Meridian, but a hotel launch is different from a wedding or a fundraiser. Different scale, same principle, he countered. Creating an experience that resonates. I've seen your portfolio. I know what you can do. His confidence in her abilities was flattering, but Maya remained cautious. I'd need complete creative control. Within budget parameters, of course. Of course, she agreed. And my team would need direct access to your marketing department, your chef, your design team, anyone involved in creating the hotel's identity. Done. And I don't work with micromanagers, she added, watching him carefully. If you hire crowning touch events, you're trusting our expertise. Dominic smiled then, a genuine expression that transformed his face from merely handsome to something that made Maya's pulse quicken unexpectedly. Mrs. Donovan, if I didn't trust your expertise, we wouldn't be having this conversation. That meeting had led to months of intense collaboration. Weekly planning sessions often stretched into evening strategy discussions. Maya found herself both challenged and invigorated by working with Dominic. Behind his polished exterior was a mind that never stopped working, constantly pushing for innovation while remaining grounded in practical realities. She learned that he valued authenticity above all else, in his hotels, in his business relationships, in the experiences he created for guests. He wanted the new hotel chain to honor the communities where they were built, not just extract profit from them. Anyone can build a luxury hotel, he told her during one late-night planning session. I want to build places that matter. Somewhere along the way, their professional relationship had developed an undercurrent of something more. Lingering glances across conference tables. Hands brushing when passing documents. Late-night text messages that strayed from hotel business to personal philosophies and shared jokes. Maya had recognized the danger signs but told herself she was imagining things. Dominic Meridian was one of Atlanta's most eligible bachelors. Wealthy, powerful, sought after by women far younger and less complicated than she was. And she was a divorced black mother who'd sworn off mixing business with pleasure after watching too many female colleagues have their professional accomplishments reduced to who they were dating. Then came the launch night. The event had been a triumph. Maya's vision for an immersive experience that showcased the hotel's unique blend of luxury and cultural connection had impressed even the most jaded industry critics. The Atlanta Journal-Constitution's lifestyle reporter had called it a new standard in hospitality launches. After the last guest had departed, Dominic had found her in the hotel's rooftop garden, taking a moment alone to decompress. "There you are," he said, two champagne flutes in hand. "The woman of the hour, hiding from her well-deserved accolades." Maya smiled, accepting the glass he offered. "Not hiding, just breathing. It went well, I think." "Well?" Dominic laughed. "Maya, it was extraordinary. You transformed my vision into something better than I imagined." The pride in his voice warmed her more than the champagne. "That's what you paid me for." "No," he said, stepping closer. "I paid you to plan a successful launch. You gave me something transcendent. Perhaps it was the champagne. Perhaps it was the months of building tension. Perhaps it was simply standing there under the stars with a man who saw her, really saw her, as both a professional force and a woman." Whatever the reason, when Dominic leaned in, Maya didn't pull away. Their first kiss had been tentative, questioning. The second had answered with certainty. And what followed had been a night that broke every rule Maya had set for herself since her divorce. Now, the morning after her dinner with Dominic, Maya found herself packing an overnight bag for the lake house, still not quite believing she was doing this. There were a dozen reasons to say no: professional boundaries, the complications of an interracial relationship in the public eye, the whispers that would inevitably follow if word got out. Yet here she was, choosing possibility over protection. Dominic's lake house turned out to be a stunning modern cabin nestled among towering pines on the shores of Lake Lanier, just an hour outside Atlanta but feeling worlds away from the city's demands. "This is beautiful," Maya said as they stood on the deck overlooking the water, the late afternoon sun casting golden light across the lake's surface. "It's my sanctuary," Dominic said, standing close enough that she could feel his warmth. "I come here when I need to remember who I am beneath all the titles and expectations." "And who is that?" she asked, turning to face him. "Just a man," he said simply. "One who's been watching an extraordinary woman for months, wondering if she might see beyond the billionaire to the person underneath." Maya felt her carefully constructed defenses wavering. "I'm scared, Dominic. Of me. Of this. Of wanting something I can't control. The last time I gave my heart to someone, he shattered it so completely I spent 15 years putting the pieces back together." Dominic took her hands in his. "I'm not asking for your heart. Not yet. I'm just asking for a chance. 3 days to show you who I really am. 3 days for you to show me who you are when you're not planning everyone else's perfect moments." That night, they cooked dinner together, laughing as Dominic revealed his limited culinary skills. They talked for hours by the fireplace, sharing stories of their pasts. Her childhood in a close-knit community in West End, his struggles as a scholarship kid at elite private schools, her devastation when Marcus left, his loneliness at the top of an empire he'd built but had no one to share with. As the conversation deepened, Maya found herself asking the question that had lingered in her mind since their first dinner. "Can I ask you something that might sound uncomfortable?" "Anything," Dominic said, his expression open. "Why me?" she asked directly. "You could be with anyone, models, socialites, women from your world. Why pursue your black event planner?" Instead of being offended, Dominic considered her question thoughtfully. "First, I'm not pursuing my black event planner. I'm pursuing Maya Donovan, a brilliant, beautiful woman who happens to be black, and also happens to plan events better than anyone I've ever met." Maya appreciated his directness but pressed on. "You know what I'm asking, Dominic? In Atlanta, people will talk. They'll make assumptions about both of us." "Let them," he said simply. I've never made life choices based on other people's narrow perspectives, and I don't intend to start now. He paused, his expression growing more serious. But if you're asking if I've thought about what it means to be in an interracial relationship in the South, then yes, I have. I know there are realities you face that I'll never fully understand, contexts and histories that shape how people might view us together. His awareness surprised her. Most white men I've known don't acknowledge that. I'm not most white men, Dominic said with a small smile. And I don't pretend to have all the answers. I just know that when I'm with you, I feel more alive, more authentic than I have with anyone else. That's worth navigating whatever complications come our way. The honesty in his voice touched something in Maya. It won't always be easy. The best things rarely are, he replied, reaching for her hand. But I'm willing to learn, to listen, to stand beside you through whatever comes. If you'll let me. When he kissed her, there was no rush, no urgency. Just a slow, deliberate exploration that left Maya feeling both seen and desired in a way she hadn't experienced in years. Later, lying in his arms, she whispered, I still don't know if this is wise. Wisdom is overrated. He murmured against her hair. Sometimes the heart knows better than the head. The next morning, Maya woke to find Dominic already up, sitting on the deck with coffee and his laptop. So much for no work, she teased, joining him with her own cup. Not work, he said, turning the screen toward her. Research. On the screen was information about a small business grant program specifically for Black women entrepreneurs in Atlanta. Your name came up on the advisory board, he explained. I was curious. Maya nodded. After my divorce, when I was struggling to get Crowning Touch off the ground, I couldn't get a business loan. No collateral, no husband's income to back me up. A grant program like this saved me. Now I try to pay it forward. That's what I admire about you, Dominic said, his eyes intent on hers. You've faced adversity and instead of becoming bitter, you've become a bridge for others. I wasn't always so noble, she admitted. After Marcus left, I was angry, devastated. I wanted to burn his world down. What changed? Zora, Maya said simply. She was 8 when he left. Watching her try to make sense of it all, I realized I could either let his betrayal define me, or I could show my daughter what resilience looks like. Dominic reached for her hand. You chose strength. I chose survival, she corrected. Strength came later. They spent the day exploring the lake, Dominic teaching Maya to fish, badly. Maya teaching Dominic to dance, surprisingly well. As the sun began to set, they sat on the dock, feet dangling in the cool water. Tell me about your marriage, Dominic said quietly. If that's not too personal. Maya was silent for a long moment. Marcus was charming, ambitious. We met in college. He was the man everyone said would go places. And did he? Oh yes, all the way to his assistant's bed, Maya said with a bitter laugh that surprised her. She thought she'd moved past the anger years ago. I'm sorry, Dominic said. That was thoughtless of me to ask. No, it's okay, Maya assured him. It's just, the humiliation was almost worse than the betrayal. Everyone knew. His colleagues, our friends. Some of them had even covered for him. And you had no idea? I was busy building my business, raising our daughter. I thought we were partners. She shook her head. The night I found out, he told me I'd been so focused on my career that I'd forgotten how to be a wife. As if his cheating was my failure. Dominic's jaw tightened. He was wrong. I know that now, Maya said. But at the time, it broke something in me. Not just my heart but my trust, in myself, in my judgment. I'd built this life with a man who could betray me so completely, and I never saw it coming. So you built walls, Dominic observed. Fortresses, Maya corrected with a small smile. With moats and dragons and everything. And now? He asked, his eyes searching hers. Maya looked out at the lake, considering. Now I'm sitting on a dock with a man who makes me want to lower the drawbridge. And it terrifies me. Dominic's hand found hers, his touch warm and steady. Fear means you're alive, Maya. It means you still have the capacity to feel, to risk, to grow. Or get hurt again, she pointed out. Yes, he agreed. That's always the risk. But is safety worth the cost of never feeling this? He lifted their joined hands, pressing a kiss to her knuckles that sent warmth spiraling through her. That night, their lovemaking was different. Slower, deeper, with a vulnerability that Maya hadn't allowed herself in years. Afterward, watching Dominic sleep, she felt a dangerous hope taking root. Maybe, just maybe, she could have this. Maybe she deserved it. The third day dawned clear and perfect. They spent it in a bubble of connection, talking about everything and nothing. Books they loved, places they wanted to travel, dreams they still harbored. By the time they packed to return to Atlanta, Maya felt both lighter and more grounded than she had in years. What happens now? She asked as they stood in his driveway, the reality of the city already intruding on their lakeside idyll. Now, Dominic said, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear, we figure it out together. No rushing, no hiding. Just us seeing where this leads. Maya nodded, wanting to believe it could be that simple. And professionally? You're still the best event planner in Atlanta, he said. I'd be a fool to let crowning touch go. But we'll be transparent with my team about our personal relationship to avoid any appearance of impropriety. It was the right answer, the thoughtful answer. Yet as Maya drove home, doubt began to creep back in. Atlanta's business community was small, its social circles even smaller. How long before whispers started? How long before her professional accomplishments were overshadowed by her relationship with Dominic? And what about the added layer of being a black woman dating one of Atlanta's most prominent white businessmen? The scrutiny would be intense, the assumptions inevitable. By the time she reached her house, the fortress walls were rising again. Have you ever met someone who made you question everything you thought you knew about love? Comment second chance, if you believe in them. The next morning, reality crashed into Maya's life with the force of a hurricane. She arrived at her office to find Tiana waiting, her expression troubled. What's wrong? Maya asked, immediately alert. Vivian Porter called, Tiana said, referring to Maya's chief competitor in Atlanta's event planning scene. She wanted to congratulate you on securing the Meridian account so thoroughly. Maya's stomach dropped. What else? She mentioned something about seeing you and Dominic at Lake Lanier this weekend. Apparently, her cousin has a place nearby. The walls closed in. It was happening already, the insinuations, the undermining of her professional reputation. Maya sank into her chair, mind racing. Maya, Tiana said gently, it's just Vivian being Vivian. You know she's always trying to get under your skin. This is different, Maya said. This is exactly what I was afraid of. Before she could elaborate, her phone rang with Dominic's ringtone. Maya stared at it, suddenly uncertain. You should answer, Tiana said, slipping out of the office and closing the door behind her. Maya took a deep breath and picked up. Hello. Good morning. Dominic's voice was warm, intimate. I missed waking up with you. The simple statement sent a pang through her chest. Dominic, Maya began, her voice tight with tension. We need to talk. There was a pause on the other end of the line. That doesn't sound promising. Vivian Porter saw us at the lake house, she said, the words tumbling out. She's already making insinuations about how I secured the Meridian account. Maya, Dominic's voice softened. Vivian Porter has been trying to undermine you for years. This is just her latest attempt. But this time she has ammunition, Maya insisted. Real ammunition. So what if she does? Dominic challenged. We're both single adults. We've done nothing wrong. Maya closed her eyes, trying to find the words to make him understand. It's not about wrong or right. It's about perception. About everything I've worked for being reduced to who I'm sleeping with. No one who knows your work would ever think that, Dominic said firmly. You'd be surprised, Maya replied, bitterness creeping into her voice. When a woman succeeds, people look for explanations beyond her talent, especially a black woman. And when that woman is dating a white man with power and money, the narratives write themselves. The silence that followed told her he was considering her words. Finally, he spoke. "What do you want to do?" Maya hesitated. What did she want? The weekend at the lake had felt like a glimpse into a different life. One where she could have both professional respect and personal fulfillment. But in the harsh light of Monday morning, that dream seemed naive. "I think we need to take a step back," she said finally. "Focus on the professional relationship until the hotel launch series is complete." Another pause. "If that's what you need." The quiet acceptance in his voice made her chest ache. "It's not about what I need, Dominic. It's about protecting what I've built." "I understand," he said, though she could hear the disappointment. "But Maya, this conversation isn't over. It's just postponed." After they hung up, Maya sat staring at her phone, wondering if she just made the biggest mistake of her life, or saved herself from making it. The next 2 weeks passed in a blur of professional detachment. Maya threw herself into finalizing details for the next 2 Meridian hotel launches. One in Chicago, one in New Orleans. She and Dominic maintained a strictly professional relationship during planning meetings, though she caught him watching her sometimes with an intensity that made her breath catch. Tiana observed the change with obvious disapproval, but said nothing until Maya was preparing to leave for the Chicago launch. "So that's it?" she asked, leaning against the doorframe of Maya's office. "You're just going to pretend nothing happened?" Maya looked up from her packing. "I'm being practical." "You're being scared," Tiana corrected, "and wasting a chance at something real because you're worried what people like Vivian Porter might say." "It's not that simple," Maya protested. "It never is," Tiana agreed. "But ask yourself this: 15 years from now, will you regret playing it safe? Or will you regret not finding out what could have been?" The question followed Maya to Chicago, haunting her as she oversaw the flawless execution of the hotel launch. Dominic was there, of course, charming investors and media alike with his vision for the brand. They maintained their professional distance, but Maya felt his absence like a physical ache. The night after the launch, alone in her hotel room, Maya finally admitted to herself that she missed him. Not just physically, but the conversations, the laughter, the feeling of being truly seen. She was reaching for her phone to call him when a breaking news alert caught her eye. Atlanta Business Chronicle. Meridian Group announces major investment from Donovan Capital. Maya froze. Donovan Capital was her ex-husband's investment firm. Marcus had built it after their divorce, leveraging connections from his former corporate job to attract wealthy clients. The thought of him working with Dominic sent a chill through her. Before she could process this development, her phone rang. Zora's name flashed on the screen. "Mom," her daughter said without preamble. "Did you know Dad is investing in Dominic's company?" "I just saw the news," Maya replied, still stunned. "Did he call you?" "Yeah," Zora said, her voice tight with anger. "He wanted to give me a heads up, since he knows I talk to you. He made it sound like he was doing you a favor." Maya's mind raced. Marcus hadn't spoken to her directly in years, communicating only through lawyers or occasionally through Zora. Why would he suddenly invest in Dominic's company? Did he say anything else? Maya asked carefully. Zora hesitated. "He asked about you and Dominic. Said he'd heard rumors you were involved." The floor seemed to drop from beneath Maya's feet. "What did you tell him?" "Nothing," Zora assured her. "It's none of his business." "But Mom, is this a coincidence? Him investing in Dominic's company right when you two are getting close." It wasn't a coincidence. Maya knew Marcus too well to believe that. This was calculated, a way to insert himself into her life, to exert some form of control or at least disruption. "I don't know, baby," she said, not wanting to burden her daughter with her suspicions. "Business is business, I suppose." After hanging up with Zora, Maya paced her hotel room, trying to make sense of this new complication. Should she warn Dominic? Would he think she was overreacting? And why did it bother her so much that Marcus would now be connected to Dominic's business? The answer came to her with uncomfortable clarity, because it meant her past and her potential future were colliding in a way she'd never anticipated. Because Marcus had already taken so much from her once, and the thought of him tainting what she had or could have with Dominic was unbearable. When she returned to Atlanta, Maya found an invitation waiting on her desk. The Atlanta Business Leadership Council was holding its annual Excellence Gala in 3 weeks, and both she and Dominic were nominated for awards. She for Entrepreneur of the Year, he for the Community Impact Award for his work developing youth tech programs in underserved neighborhoods. Under normal circumstances, Maya would have been thrilled by the nomination. Now, it felt like another complication. She would have to attend, of course. The ABLC Gala was the premier networking event for business leaders in the Southeast. But seeing Dominic there, maintaining their professional facade while Marcus potentially lurked in the background, the thought exhausted her. Her phone buzzed with a text from Dominic. "Congratulations on your nomination. Well deserved. Simple. Professional. Nothing that would raise eyebrows if someone happened to see it." Maya stared at the message, feeling the distance she herself had created stretching between them. "Thank you. Congratulations to you as well," she replied, equally formal. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, then appeared again. Finally, "I miss you, Maya." Those 3 words cracked something in her chest. Before she could respond, another text came through. Marcus Donovan reached out to schedule a meeting about his investment. "Is there anything I should know?" Maya's fingers hovered over the keyboard. How much should she say? How much was her past with Marcus relevant to Dominic's business decisions? "He's a shrewd investor," she wrote finally. "And my ex-husband." The response was immediate. "I know. I did my research. What I'm asking is if his sudden interest in Meridian Group has anything to do with you and me." Maya closed her eyes. Of course Dominic would have connected those dots. He hadn't built a business empire by being oblivious to human motivations. It might, she admitted. Marcus has always had a talent for inserting himself where he's least wanted. Should I decline the investment? The offer took her by surprise. Marcus's firm was bringing significant capital to the table. Capital that would help fund Dominic's expansion plans. Was she really going to ask him to turn that down because of her personal history? No, she replied after careful consideration. Business is business. Just be careful. Marcus rarely does anything without multiple angles. Noted. And Maya? This doesn't change anything between us. When you're ready to talk, really talk, I'm here. The message brought unexpected tears to her eyes. Even now, with her pulling away and complications mounting, Dominic was giving her space while making it clear he wasn't giving up. The next 3 weeks passed in a blur of preparation, both for the New Orleans hotel launch and the ABLC Gala. Maya threw herself into work, using the familiar rhythms of event planning to avoid thinking about the tangled personal situation she found herself in. Zora called frequently, her concern evident. "Mom, are you okay? You sound exhausted." "Just busy, baby," Maya assured her. 2 major events back-to-back is a lot, even for me. "Is that all it is?" Zora pressed. "Because you haven't mentioned Dominic once since Chicago." Maya sighed. Her daughter knew her too well. "It's complicated." "You keep saying that," Zora observed. "But from where I'm sitting, it seems pretty simple. You care about him. He cares about you. The rest is just noise. Noise that could affect my business, my reputation." "Your happiness," Zora interrupted. "That matters too, Mom. More than what people like Vivian Porter think. More than whatever game Dad is playing." The New Orleans launch went off without a hitch, though the tension between Maya and Dominic was palpable to anyone paying attention. They maintained their professional rapport, but the easy connection they developed over months of collaboration had been replaced by careful distance. The night before flying back to Atlanta, Maya found herself unable to sleep. The walls of her hotel room seemed to close in as she replayed the past few weeks in her mind. She had done exactly what she always did. Protected herself, maintained control, kept her professional reputation intact. So why did it feel like she was losing something precious? Her phone lit up with a text. "Are you awake? Dominic." She hesitated before replying. "Yes. Come to the rooftop garden. Please." Maya stared at the message. The sensible answer was no. It was after midnight. They had an early flight. there were a dozen reasons to decline. Instead, she found herself pulling on a sweater over her silk pajamas and taking the elevator to the roof. Dominic stood at the railing, looking out over the twinkling lights of the French Quarter. He turned when he heard the door open, and the naked longing on his face made Maya's heart clench. "I wasn't sure you'd come," he said simply. "Neither was I," she admitted, joining him at the railing but maintaining a careful distance. They stood in silence for a moment, the warm New Orleans night wrapping around them like a blanket. "I met with Marcus yesterday," Dominic said finally. "Before flying here." Maya tensed. And he made it very clear that his investment comes with strings. He wants a seat on the board, access to our client lists, and Dominic hesitated. "And," Maya prompted, though she suspected what was coming. "And he suggested that my personal relationship with you might represent a conflict of interest, given that Crowning Touch handles our events." Dominic's jaw tightened. He also made some comments about interracial relationships being complicated in the Atlanta business community. Said he was just looking out for both our interests. There it was, the threat she'd been anticipating since seeing the investment news. Marcus was using his financial leverage to drive a wedge between her and Dominic, just as she'd feared, and he was weaponizing race to do it. "What did you tell him?" she asked, her voice carefully neutral. Dominic turned to face her fully. "I told him that my personal life is not up for negotiation. That Crowning Touch was selected for its excellence, not because of any personal connection. And that if he thought he could use racial politics or business leverage to dictate who I care about, he could take his investment elsewhere." Maya stared at him, stunned. "You turned him down? That was a multi-million-dollar deal." "There are other investors," Dominic said with a shrug. "None who would try to dictate who I can or can't care about." The simple declaration hung in the air between them. Maya felt something shift inside her. A realization that while she'd been busy protecting herself from potential gossip, Dominic had just walked away from millions to protect what was growing between them. "Why?" she whispered. "Why would you do that?" Dominic stepped closer, close enough that she could feel the warmth radiating from him. "Because some things matter more than money, Maya. Some people matter more." "I've been pushing you away," she acknowledged, guilt washing over her. "You've been protecting yourself," he corrected gently. "I understand why. But Maya, at some point you have to ask yourself what you're protecting yourself for. What's the point of all this success if you don't allow yourself to be happy?" It was the same question Zora had asked her, the same one she'd been avoiding for weeks. What was she saving herself for? What future was she safeguarding that was worth sacrificing this connection? "I'm scared," she admitted, the words barely audible. "I know," he said, reaching out to brush a tear she hadn't realized had fallen. "So am I. But I'm more afraid of walking away from this, from us, than I am of facing whatever comes next together." Maya closed her eyes, leaning into his touch. "People will talk. Not just about me sleeping my way to success, but about us being together at all. There are still people in this city who have opinions about interracial couples. Let them," Dominic said firmly. "Your work speaks for itself, Maya. And as for the rest, I'm not naive about the challenges. But I refuse to let other people's prejudices dictate my happiness. Or yours. And if it affects my business, then we'll face that too," he promised. "Together. But hiding what we feel isn't the answer. It's just letting fear win." Maya looked up at him. This man who had walked away from millions rather than let her ex-husband dictate their relationship. Who had given her space when she pulled away, but never stopped making it clear he was waiting when she was ready. "I don't want to hide anymore," she whispered, the decision crystallizing as she spoke the words. "I'm tired of letting fear dictate my choices." Dominic's smile was like the sun breaking through clouds. Slowly, giving her time to pull away if she wanted, he leaned down and kissed her. A kiss that felt like coming home and setting out on an adventure all at once. When they parted, Maya felt lighter than she had in weeks. "So what happens now?" "Now," Dominic said, tucking her against his side as they looked out over the city. "We stop pretending. We go to that gala together, not as business associates, but as a couple. We show Atlanta that Maya Donovan doesn't have to choose between professional success and personal happiness. The thought was both terrifying and exhilarating. And Marcus, Dominic said firmly, we'll have to find another company to invest in, and another way to try to control you. For the first time in 15 years, the mention of her ex-husband's name didn't bring a surge of anger or hurt. Instead, Maya felt something close to pity. Marcus was still playing power games, still trying to manipulate and control. Meanwhile, she was finally learning to embrace joy without fear. I like that plan, she said, leaning her head against Dominic's shoulder. They stayed on the rooftop until the first hints of dawn began to lighten the sky, talking about everything and nothing, making up for the weeks of distance with words and touches and promises for the future. By the time they boarded the plane back to Atlanta, Maya had made her decision. No more hiding. No more letting fear of judgment dictate her choices. It was time to claim her happiness, openly and without apology. The night of the Atlanta Business Leadership Council Excellence Gala arrived with a buzz of anticipation. Maya stood in her bedroom, smoothing the fabric of her gown. A stunning creation in deep gold that hugged her curves before flowing gracefully to the floor. She'd chosen it months ago, before Dominic, before the complications with Marcus, before she decided to stop hiding. Her phone chimed with a text from Zora. Knock 'em dead. Mom. So proud of you. Maya smiled, typing back. For the nomination or for bringing Dominic as my date? The response came immediately. Both. But mostly for choosing happiness. It's about time. The doorbell rang, sending a flutter of nerves through Maya's stomach. This wasn't just any date. This was her public declaration that she, Maya Donovan, was choosing to live on her own terms. Professional success and personal fulfillment. No compromise. She opened the door to find Dominic waiting, breathtaking in a perfectly tailored tuxedo. His eyes widened appreciatively as he took in her appearance. Maya, he breathed. You are magnificent. She felt a blush warm her cheeks. You clean up pretty well yourself, Mr. Meridian. He offered his arm with a smile. Ready to make a statement? Maya took a deep breath, placing her hand in the crook of his elbow. As ready as I'll ever be. The drive to the Whitley Hotel in Buckhead was quiet, a comfortable silence settling between them. Maya found herself thinking about how far she'd come. From the devastated woman Marcus had left 15 years ago to the successful entrepreneur about to walk into Atlanta's premier business event on the arm of a man who saw her strength as an asset, not a threat. Penny for your thoughts? Dominic asked as they neared the hotel. I was just thinking about journeys, Maya said. About how sometimes the longest distance we travel is from fear to freedom. Dominic squeezed her hand. That's quite a journey. Are you glad you made it? Maya looked at him. Really looked at the man who had refused to let her resignation letter stand, who had pursued her with patience and respect, who had walked away from millions rather than let Marcus come between them. I'm still making it, she admitted. But yes, I'm very glad to have you walking beside me. As their car pulled up to the hotel entrance, Maya spotted the red carpet lined with photographers and local media. The ABLC Gala had grown in prominence over the years, becoming a showcase for business excellence across the Southeast. Last chance to back out, Dominic said lightly, though his eyes were serious. Maya straightened her shoulders. Not a chance. The moment they stepped onto the red carpet, flashbulbs erupted. Maya had attended this event for years, usually alone or with Tiana as her plus one. The attention she received now on Dominic's arm was of a different magnitude entirely. Mr. Meridian, Ms. Donovan, are you here together? Called a reporter from the Atlanta Business Chronicle. Dominic's hand found the small of her back, a gesture both protective and proud. Yes, we are, he answered simply. They moved through the gauntlet of cameras with practiced ease, neither confirming nor denying anything beyond their presence together. Let people draw their own conclusions, Maya had decided. She wasn't going to hide, but neither was she going to feed the gossip mill with details. Inside the ballroom, heads turned as they entered. Maya spotted Vivian Porter across the room, her expression souring as she took in their joined hands. But there were friendly faces too, colleagues who smiled warmly, clients who came over to greet them with genuine pleasure. "Maya Donovan," came a voice from behind them, stunning as always. Maya turned to find Marcus standing there, champagne flute in hand, his smile not reaching his eyes. At 45, he was still handsome in a polished corporate way, but the years had added a hardness to his features that Maya didn't remember. "Marcus," she acknowledged coolly, "I didn't expect to see you here." "Donovan Capital is sponsoring a table this year," he replied, his gaze sliding to Dominic. "Mr. Meridian, interesting to see you with my ex-wife." Dominic's expression remained pleasant, though Maya felt him tense slightly beside her. "Not as interesting as your sudden interest in my company, I'm sure." Marcus's smile tightened. "Business is business. Speaking of which, have you reconsidered my offer? The terms are quite generous." "They're quite controlling," Dominic corrected mildly. "And no, I haven't reconsidered. Some things aren't for sale." The implication hung in the air between them. Marcus's gaze hardened as it shifted back to Maya. "I always admired your ambition, Maya. It's what drew me to you in college. But I never thought you'd leverage it quite like this." The insinuation was clear, and 15 years ago, it would have devastated her. Now, Maya felt only a calm certainty as she met her ex-husband's gaze. "That's the difference between us, Marcus," she said evenly. "You've always seen relationships as transactions. I've learned they're about partnership. But then, you never did understand the difference." Before Marcus could respond, the ABLC president approached, greeting them warmly. "Maya, Dominic, so glad you both could make it. We're about to begin the awards portion of the evening." As they moved toward their table, Dominic squeezed Maya's hand. "You okay?" She nodded, surprised to find it was true. "Better than okay. I think I just closed a chapter that's been open far too long." The awards ceremony proceeded with the expected mix of inspiring speeches and community acknowledgments. When Maya's category was announced, she felt a flutter of nerves that had nothing to do with Marcus or public perception and everything to do with professional pride. And the Entrepreneur of the Year award goes to Maya Donovan of Crowning Touch Events. The room erupted in applause as Maya made her way to the stage, accepting the Crystal Award with hands that trembled slightly. Looking out at the sea of faces, Atlanta's business elite, people who had watched her build her company from nothing, she felt a surge of gratitude. 15 years ago, she began, I started Crowning Touch with nothing but determination and a refusal to be defined by what I'd lost. Today, I stand before you not just as a successful entrepreneur, but as a woman who has finally learned that professional excellence and personal joy aren't competing priorities. They're complementary strengths. She found Dominic's eyes in the crowd, his pride evident even from a distance. "I want to thank my daughter, Zora, who never lets me settle for less than I deserve. My team at Crowning Touch, who bring excellence to everything they touch. And," she paused, a small smile playing at her lips, "I want to thank those who believed in me when I was still learning to believe in myself. You know who you are." The knowing murmurs that rippled through the crowd didn't bother her. For the first time in her adult life, Maya was standing fully in her truth. Accomplished, respected, and unafraid to acknowledge her heart. Later, when Dominic won his award for community impact, his speech included a line that made Maya's breath catch. "True success isn't measured in dollars or deals, but in the lives we touch and the love we're brave enough to accept." Their eyes met across the room, a private moment in a public space. Maya felt something settle in her chest, a certainty that had been building since that first dinner at Mrs. Rossi's restaurant. This was right. They were right, and no amount of gossip or manipulation could diminish that truth. As the formal portion of the evening gave way to dancing and networking, Maya found herself approached by a young black woman she recognized as the owner of a small marketing firm. "Ms. Donovan," the woman said hesitantly, "I just wanted to say thank you." "For what?" Maya asked, surprised. "For showing that we don't have to choose," the woman explained, "between being taken seriously as businesswomen and being happy as women. I've been hiding my relationship with my investor for months because I was afraid people would say I didn't earn my success. Watching you tonight with Mr. Meridian, it gave me courage. Maya felt her eyes sting with unexpected tears. What's your name? Leah. Leah Washington. Well, Leah Washington, Maya said, taking the younger woman's hands in hers. Your success is your own, and anyone who says differently isn't worth your time or worry. After Leah moved on, Dominic appeared at Maya's side, slipping an arm around her waist. Making new friends? More like realizing the power of example, Maya said thoughtfully. I've been so worried about how our relationship might damage my reputation that I never considered how it might inspire others. Dominic's expression softened. You've always been an inspiration, Maya. Now you're just allowing yourself to be a complete one, successful and loved. The word loved hung between them, new and yet somehow familiar. Maya leaned into his embrace, no longer concerned with who might be watching. Take me home? She asked softly. His eyes darkened with understanding. Your place or mine? Yours, she decided. I think it's time I saw where the great Dominic Meridian lays his head. They slipped out of the gala without fanfare, leaving behind the whispers and stares and congratulations. In the car, Maya kicked off her heels with a sigh of relief, earning a chuckle from Dominic. The glamorous entrepreneur has her limits, I see. The glamorous entrepreneur has been in 4-inch heels for 6 hours, Maya corrected with a smile. Even excellence has its breaking point. Dominic's penthouse in Midtown was exactly what Maya might have expected. Sleek, modern, with floor-to-ceiling windows offering a stunning view of the Atlanta skyline. What surprised her were the personal touches. Family photos, well-worn books lining built-in shelves, a vintage record player in the corner with an impressive vinyl collection. Not what you expected? Dominic asked, noting her expression as he handed her a glass of wine. It's more lived in than I imagined, she admitted. More you, as opposed to the corporate automaton some people think I am? He teased. Maya smiled, running her fingers along the spines of his books. As opposed to the billionaire who lives in a sterile showplace. This feels like a home. It's getting there, Dominic said, coming to stand behind her. Though it's been missing something important. What's that? Maya asked, turning to face him. His eyes were serious as they met hers. Someone to share it with. Someone who sees me, not just what I've built. The simple honesty of his words touched something deep in Maya's heart. For so long, she defined herself by her work, her independence, her ability to succeed without a partner. She told herself it was strength, but standing here in Dominic's space, she wondered if it had really been fear of being vulnerable, of needing someone, of letting another person close enough to matter. I see you, she said softly, reaching up to touch his face. The boy from South Boston who made good. The man who honors his mother's memory by creating opportunity for others. The CEO who walks away from millions rather than compromise his integrity. I see all of you, Dominic. He turned his head to press a kiss to her palm. And I see you, Maya. The fighter who rebuilt her life from scratch. The mother who raised an incredible daughter. The woman who's finally allowing herself to want more than just success. When he kissed her, it felt like a promise. Not just of passion, but of partnership. Of a future where neither of them had to choose between their ambitions and their hearts. Later, lying in his bed with the city lights twinkling beyond the windows, Maya traced patterns on Dominic's chest, her mind drifting to the journey that had brought them here. What are you thinking? He asked, his voice low in the darkness. I'm thinking about fear, she admitted. About how close I came to letting it win. Dominic's arms tightened around her. But you didn't. That's what matters. Thanks to you, Maya said. You refused to let me run. I refused to let you hide. He corrected gently. The courage to stay and face your fears. That was all you, Maya. She considered this, realizing he was right. The decision had been hers, to lower her walls, to risk judgment, to choose happiness over safety. Dominic had simply created the space for her to make that choice. What happens now? She asked, echoing the question she'd posed at the lake house months ago. Dominic shifted to look at her, his expression visible in the dim light filtering through the windows. Now we build something together. Something that honors both our individual journeys and the one we're starting. That sounds suspiciously like a long-term plan, Mr. Meridian, Maya teased, though her heart raced at the implication. I'm a planner, he said with a smile. And I plan to love you for a very long time, Maya Donovan. The word that had hung between them earlier now settled into her heart, fitting perfectly into a space she'd kept locked for 15 years. I think I can work with that plan, she whispered, pulling him down for a kiss that sealed their unspoken promise. 1 year later, the whispers rippled through the ballroom as Maya Donovan entered on Dominic Meridian's arm. The crystal chandeliers of Atlanta's Business Leadership Gala cast a golden glow across her copper-toned skin, highlighting the quiet confidence in her stride. At 43, she commanded attention in a way that had nothing to do with the billionaire beside her and everything to do with the power she'd claimed for herself. Well, came a voice dripping with false sweetness. If it isn't Atlanta's most resourceful event planner. Vivian Porter, Maya's longtime rival, stood blocking their path, champagne flute dangling from manicured fingers. I always wondered how Crowning Touch Events landed the exclusive Meridian contract. Now we all know. The room seemed to still, conversations faltering as heads turned toward the confrontation. Maya felt Dominic tense beside her, ready to defend her, but she placed a gentle hand on his arm. This was her battle. Vivian, Maya replied, her voice carrying just enough to ensure the onlookers missed nothing. I've always admired how you confuse a woman's competence with her romantic choices. It must be exhausting to believe we can't earn our success through talent alone. Vivian's smile froze. I'm just saying what everyone's thinking, darling. Sleeping with clients is certainly one way to climb. Maya stepped closer, her voice dropping to an intimate volume that somehow commanded more attention than a shout. 1 year ago, I would have run from this moment, worried what people like you might say. But that was before I learned what true power looks like. She held up her left hand, where a stunning engagement ring caught the light. True power is refusing to choose between professional excellence and personal joy. It's standing in your truth even when others try to diminish it. And it's recognizing that love doesn't weaken a strong woman. It amplifies her strength. The murmurs that swept through the crowd were not the scandalized whispers Vivian had hoped for, but sounds of appreciation and support. In the year since Maya and Dominic had gone public with their relationship, they had become something of a power couple in Atlanta's business community. Not because of scandal, but because of how they elevated each other's work. Crowning Touch Events had expanded to 3 new cities. The Meridian hotel chain was revolutionizing luxury hospitality with its community-focused approach. And together, they had launched a mentorship program for young entrepreneurs from underserved communities, creating pathways to success that neither could have built alone. If you'll excuse us, Maya said to a stunned Vivian, my fiancé and I have an award to accept. As they moved through the crowd, accepting congratulations and well wishes, Maya caught sight of Marcus across the room. He nodded once, a gesture that wasn't quite respect but acknowledged something like recognition. His investment firm had found other opportunities after Dominic's rejection, and while he would never be a friend, he was no longer an active threat. On stage, accepting the Partnership Impact Award, a new category created to honor business collaborations that transformed communities, Maya stood beside Dominic, their hands linked as they addressed the crowd. A year ago, Maya began, I stood on this stage and talked about learning that professional excellence and personal joy aren't competing priorities. What I've discovered since then is that when you find the right partner, in business and in life, those priorities don't just coexist. They magnify each other. Dominic squeezed her hand before adding, the strongest partnerships aren't about power or control. They're about recognizing each other's unique gifts and creating space for them to flourish. Maya taught me that. And together, we're working to create those opportunities for others. Later that night, in the quiet of their home, they'd moved into a new place together, a beautiful house in Inman Park that combined his modern aesthetic with her warmth. Maya curled against Dominic on their back porch, watching fireflies dance in the garden. Full circle, she murmured, thinking of the confrontation with Vivian and how differently it had played out from the scenario she'd once feared. Dominic's fingers traced lazy patterns on her shoulder. A year ago, I was terrified of exactly what happened tonight. Someone publicly insinuating I slept my way to success. And now you shut it down with the confidence of a woman who knows her worth. Dominic finished, pride evident in his voice. Maya smiled, twisting her engagement ring. A stunning emerald surrounded by diamonds that Dominic had presented to her 6 months earlier during a surprise trip to Savannah. The proposal had been private, intimate, just the two of them walking along the riverfront at sunset. Exactly what she would have wanted if she'd known to want it. It's not just knowing my worth, she reflected. It's understanding that my worth isn't diminished by loving you. For so long, I thought strength meant standing alone. And now I know true strength is standing in your truth, whatever that truth may be. She turned to look at him, this man who had refused to let her resignation letter stand, who had patiently waited while she battled her fears. My truth includes you. This partnership we're building. Dominic's kiss was gentle, reverent. Speaking of partnership, Zora called while you were changing. She wants to know if we've set a date yet. Maya laughed. Her daughter had been their biggest cheerleader from the beginning, delighted to see her mother finally embracing happiness. She's more eager for this wedding than we are. I wouldn't say that, Dominic countered with a smile. I'd marry you tomorrow if you'd agree. Patience, Mr. Meridian, Maya teased. A proper wedding takes planning, and between the Chicago hotel opening and the mentorship program launch, we've barely had time to breathe. Is that the event planner talking? Or the bride? Both, Maya admitted. I want our wedding to be perfect, not for show, but because it represents something precious. Something worth celebrating properly. Dominic nodded, understanding as always. Christmas, then? Give ourselves 6 months to plan something meaningful. The suggestion sent a warm glow through Maya's chest. Christmas had always been her favorite holiday, a time when even her busiest clients slowed down and focused on what mattered. A time for new beginnings. Christmas, she agreed, sealing the decision with a kiss. The next morning, Maya woke early, slipping out of bed without waking Dominic. She padded downstairs to make coffee, her mind already racing with ideas for their December wedding. As she waited for the coffee to brew, she scrolled through her emails, pausing when she saw one from Leah Washington, the young entrepreneur she'd met at last year's gala. Dear Ms. Donovan, I wanted to share some exciting news. Washington Marketing has been selected as one of the preferred vendors for the new Meridian Hotel in Chicago. I know this opportunity came because of our quality and service, but I also know that your encouragement gave me the confidence to apply. When we spoke last year, I was hiding my relationship with my business partner, now fiancé, because I feared people would say I didn't earn my success. Watching you stand proudly in both your professional accomplishments and your personal joy showed me another way. Thank you for being an example of what's possible when we refuse to let fear dictate our choices. With gratitude, Leah Washington, founder and CEO, Washington Marketing. Maya felt tears prick her eyes as she read the message. This was the legacy she hadn't anticipated. Not just building a successful business or finding love again, but showing other women that they didn't have to choose, that they could claim all parts of themselves without apology. Everything okay? Dominic asked, coming into the kitchen and wrapping his arms around her from behind. Maya showed him the email, watching as his expression softened. This is why what we're doing matters, she said. Not just the mentorship program or the business expansions, but living our truth openly. It creates permission for others to do the same. You create that permission, Dominic corrected gently. Your courage inspires people, Maya. It always has. Later that day, Maya met Tiana for lunch to discuss the upcoming Chicago hotel opening. Her assistant, now promoted to director of operations as Crowning Touch expanded, had been with her through every step of the journey with Dominic, from that first delivery of gardenias to the engagement announcement. So, Christmas wedding? Tiana asked with a knowing smile as they settled into their booth at their favorite midtown restaurant. Maya laughed. News travels fast. Zora texted me this morning. She's already looking at bridesmaid dresses. Of course she is, Maya said, shaking her head fondly. Yes, we're thinking Christmas. Small, intimate, just family and close friends. At the lake house? Tiana suggested. That place is magical in winter. The idea resonated immediately. The lake house where Maya had first begun to lower her walls, where she and Dominic had started to build something real. That's perfect, actually. I'll talk to Dominic about it tonight. As they discussed business, the Chicago opening, potential new clients, the expansion of their team, Maya felt a deep sense of satisfaction. Crowning Touch was thriving, growing in ways she'd always dreamed but never quite believed possible. And unlike the frantic work pace she'd maintained for years after her divorce, this growth felt sustainable, balanced. You know, Tiana observed as they finished their meal, a year ago you would have been stressed about half these projects. Now you're handling twice the workload and seem more at peace than ever. Maya considered this. I think I've finally learned the difference between being busy and being purposeful. And having someone to share the journey with, it changes things. Dominic. Him, yes. But also you, Zora, our team, the mentorship program participants. I spent so many years trying to prove I could do it all alone that I forgot the power of community. Tiana nodded thoughtfully. From one-woman show to community builder. That's quite an evolution, boss. That evening, Maya and Dominic hosted a dinner for the newest cohort of their mentorship program. 12 young entrepreneurs from across Atlanta, each with promising business ideas but limited access to capital and connections. The program, funded jointly by Meridian Group and Crowning Touch, provided not just financial support but practical guidance, networking opportunities, and ongoing mentorship. As Maya looked around their dining table at the eager faces, a diverse group of young men and women who reminded her of herself 20 years ago, she felt a profound sense of purpose. This was the work that mattered most. Creating pathways for others, using their success to lift up the next generation. Before we begin, Dominic said, standing at the head of the table, I want to welcome you all to our home and to this program. Maya and I believe that talent is universal, but opportunity is not. Our goal is to help bridge that gap. Maya watched him with pride as he outlined the program structure, monthly workshops, one-on-one mentoring sessions, pitch opportunities with potential investors. Dominic, in this role, teacher, mentor, community builder, was perhaps her favorite version of him, though she loved all the facets of the complex man she'd agreed to marry. After dinner, as the ments broke into smaller discussion groups throughout the house, a young black woman approached Maya privately. Ms. Donovan, she said hesitantly, can I ask you something personal? Of course, Maya replied, leading her to a quiet corner of the living room. And please call me Maya. The young woman, Kendra, if Maya remembered correctly, a graphic designer launching a branding agency for small businesses, twisted her hands nervously. How did you know? That Mr. Meridian was someone you could trust with your heart and your business? That he wouldn't try to take over or diminish you? The question revealed layers of concern that Maya understood all too well. I didn't know, not at first, she admitted. I was terrified, actually. I'd been hurt before, and I'd worked so hard to build my company that the thought of risking it all for a relationship seemed foolish. What changed? Maya considered the question carefully. I realized that Dominic wasn't asking me to be less so he could be more. He wanted me to shine in my full power, and he was secure enough in himself to celebrate that rather than feel threatened by it. She paused, thinking of the journey they'd traveled. But it wasn't just about him. It was about me learning that protecting my heart had become a prison of its own. That true strength isn't about walls. It's about being brave enough to be vulnerable, to risk pain for the possibility of joy. Kendra nodded slowly. I'm seeing someone, another entrepreneur. He's amazing, supportive of my business. But I keep waiting for the other shoe to drop. For him to decide my ambition is too much, like my ex did. The past can be a powerful teacher, Maya said gently, but a terrible master. Don't let old wounds dictate new possibilities. As the evening wound down and the last ments departed, Maya found Dominic in his home office, reviewing notes from the discussions. She leaned against the doorframe, watching him work, focused, passionate, yet with a gentleness that had drawn her from the beginning. "Successful night," she observed. He looked up with a smile that still made her heart skip. "Very. This group has incredible potential." "Lake house for the wedding," Maya said, changing subjects abruptly. "Christmas Eve. Just family and close friends, with the mentorship program participants invited to the reception. What do you think?" Dominic's smile widened. "I think that sounds perfect. The place where you first began to trust me, on the day that represents hope and new beginnings." "Exactly," Maya said, crossing to perch on the edge of his desk. "And I was thinking, what if we announced a scholarship fund at the reception? Something to help young entrepreneurs from backgrounds like ours get the education and support they need." "The Meridian Donovan Foundation," Dominic suggested, pulling her onto his lap. "I love it. A wedding gift to the community that shaped us." Maya wrapped her arms around his neck, marveling at how perfectly they fit together. Not just physically, but in vision and values. "Who would have thought that resignation letter would lead to all this?" "I did," Dominic said with quiet confidence. "The moment you walked into my office 6 months before that, I knew you were special, worth pursuing, worth waiting for. Even when I pushed you away? Especially then," he said, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear, "because I recognized the fear for what it was, not disinterest but self-protection. And I understood that anything worth having was worth the patience it required." As summer turned to fall and fall to early winter, Maya found herself embracing the wedding preparations with an enthusiasm that surprised even her. She who had planned countless events for others was discovering the joy of creating one that celebrated her own journey. Not just with Dominic, but with herself. The lake house was transformed for Christmas Eve, with twinkling lights woven through the pines and elegant white flowers adorning the interior. Maya had chosen a gown that reflected her journey, sophisticated yet warm, with subtle details that spoke to her heritage and strength. Zora served as her maid of honor, stunning in a deep green dress that complemented her mother's cream-colored gown. As they prepared in the lake house's master suite, Maya felt a sense of completion she'd never expected to find. "You look beautiful, Mom," Zora said, adjusting the delicate lace at Maya's shoulder. "Radiant. Happy," Maya corrected with a smile. "I look happy." "That too," Zora agreed. "I'm so proud of you, you know. Not just for building your business or for finding love again, but for showing me what courage looks like." Maya felt tears threaten. "Oh, baby, I was just trying to survive." "At first, maybe," Zora acknowledged. "But this past year, that was about thriving, about choosing joy even when it was scary. That's the example I'll carry with me." Before Maya could respond, there was a knock at the door. Tiana peeked in, her expression a mix of concern and determination. "Maya, there's someone here to see you." Before the ceremony, something in her tone made Maya tense. "Who?" Tiana hesitated. "Marcus. He says he just wants a moment." Maya exchanged a glance with Zora, whose expression had hardened at the mention of her father. In the year since the confrontation at the gala, Marcus had maintained his distance, neither interfering nor attempting reconciliation. "It's okay," Maya decided after a moment. "I'll see him, alone," she added when Zora started to protest. Marcus waited in the small study off the main living area, looking uncomfortable in the space that so clearly belonged to Maya and Dominic. He turned when she entered, his expression unreadable. "Maya," he said, his voice carefully neutral. "Thank you for seeing me." "What do you want, Marcus?" she asked directly. "I'm getting married in 30 minutes. He nodded, acknowledging the time constraint. "I know. I'm not here to cause problems. I just—" He paused, seeming to struggle with his words. "I wanted to apologize for how things ended between us, for what I said that night." Maya studied him, looking for the manipulation or angle she'd come to expect. Instead, She saw something that looked surprisingly like genuine regret. "Why now?" she asked. "It's been 15 years. Because watching you this past year with Meridian, with your business, with that mentorship program, it's made me realize how wrong I was. About you. About what makes a partnership work." The admission was unexpected, and Maya found herself momentarily speechless. "I told you that you'd forgotten how to be a wife," Marcus continued, the words clearly difficult for him. "The truth is, I never learned how to be a husband, a real partner. I wanted you to make yourself smaller to accommodate my ego, and when you wouldn't, I looked elsewhere." "Why are you telling me this now, Marcus?" Maya asked again, her voice softer. He shrugged, a gesture that reminded her briefly of the young man she'd fallen for in college. "Because you deserve to start this marriage knowing that what happened between us wasn't your failure. It was mine. And because—" he hesitated. "Because Zora deserves to see that people can grow, can acknowledge their mistakes, even years later." Maya felt something shift inside her. Not forgiveness exactly, but a release. The last lingering tendrils of hurt and anger dissolving into something like peace. "Thank you for that," she said simply. "I hope you find happiness, Marcus. Real happiness, not just success." He nodded, moving toward the door. "I should go. I'm not staying for the ceremony. That would be inappropriate." "But Maya—" He paused, meeting her eyes directly. "He's a lucky man. I hope he knows that." "He does," came Dominic's voice from the doorway. He stood there in his tuxedo, watching Marcus with a steady gaze that held neither hostility nor triumph. "Every day." Marcus nodded once in acknowledgement before slipping past Dominic and out of the house. In the silence that followed, Maya felt the last piece of her past settle into place. Not erased or forgotten, but integrated into the woman she had become. "You okay?" Dominic asked, crossing to her. "I'm not supposed to see you before the ceremony," Maya deflected, though she made no move to turn away. "I think we've never been much for following expected paths," he said with a smile, taking her hands in his. "Besides, I wanted to make sure you were all right." Maya squeezed his hands, feeling the strength and support that had become her foundation. "I'm more than all right. I'm ready. For this day, for our life together, for whatever comes next." The ceremony itself was everything Maya had hoped for. Intimate, meaningful, filled with the people who had supported their journey. As she and Dominic exchanged vows beneath a canopy of twinkling lights and winter stars, Maya felt the full circle of her journey. From broken trust to rebuilt faith, from self-protection to brave vulnerability, from isolation to community. "I promise to honor your strength as the gift that it is," Dominic vowed, his voice steady and sure. "To walk beside you, not ahead or behind. To celebrate your victories as my own and to face challenges as partners in all things." Maya's voice trembled slightly as she responded, "I promise to trust you with my heart, knowing that true strength lies in vulnerability. To build with you, dream with you, and create a legacy of love and service that extends beyond ourselves." As they sealed their vows with a kiss, cheers erupted from their gathered loved ones. Maya caught Zora's eye, saw the tears of joy on her daughter's face, and felt her own heart expand with gratitude for this journey. Every painful step and joyful leap that had led her here. At the reception that followed, the lake house glowed with warmth and celebration. The mentorship program participants mingled with business associates, family members, and friends, creating the kind of community Maya had once only dreamed of building. When it came time for toasts, Zora stood first, her glass raised toward her mother and new stepfather. "When I was 8 years old," she began, "I watched my mother rebuild her life from scratch. She taught me that a woman's worth isn't defined by a man's presence or absence, but by her own courage and determination. For years, I saw her pour everything into two things, her business and me." Zora's gaze shifted to Dominic. "And then this man came along, who saw what I've always known, that my mother is extraordinary. Not just as a businesswoman or a mother, but as a complete person deserving of both success and love." She turned back to Maya, tears shimmering in her eyes. "Mom, watching you open your heart again has been the greatest gift. You've shown me that past pain doesn't have to dictate future possibilities. That true strength isn't about standing alone, but about being brave enough to stand with someone worthy of your trust. Maya felt Dominic's hand tighten around hers as Zora continued. To Maya and Dominic, may your partnership continue to inspire others as it has inspired me. May you build something together that's even greater than what you could create apart. And may you always remember that love doesn't diminish your power, it amplifies it. As glasses were raised around the room, Dominic leaned close to whisper in Maya's ear, "She's remarkable. Just like her mother." Maya smiled through her tears, watching her daughter, now a confident young woman completing her master's degree, with a promising future ahead, and feeling a profound sense of completion. The circle of love and strength that had begun with just the two of them had expanded to include Dominic, their mentor, their community. Later, as they announced the creation of the Meridian Donovan Foundation to support young entrepreneurs from underserved communities, Maya looked out at the faces watching them. Some moved to tears, others nodding with approval and support. This foundation, she explained, represents our belief that success means little if not shared, that the true measure of achievement isn't in what you accumulate, but in what you contribute. Dominic continued seamlessly, their vision as aligned as their hearts. Each of you here tonight has played a role in our journey, supporting us, challenging us, believing in us. This foundation is our way of extending that same support to others who may just need one person to believe in their potential. As the evening wound down and guests began to depart, Maya found herself on the deck overlooking the lake, the same spot where she had first confessed her fears to Dominic a year earlier. The winter air was crisp, but she was warmed by both her wrap and the glow of the day's events. Dominic joined her, slipping his arm around her waist. Any regrets, Mrs. Meridian Donovan? They had decided to hyphenate, a choice that honored both their individual identities and their new shared one. Maya leaned into his embrace, considering his question. "Not a single one," she said truthfully. "Every step of the journey, even the painful ones, led here. And here is exactly where I want to be." They stood in comfortable silence, watching the moonlight dance across the lake's surface. Maya thought about the woman she had been a year ago, standing in Dominic's office with a resignation letter in her trembling hand. How terrified she had been of risking her hard-won independence and professional reputation for something as uncertain as love. "What are you thinking about?" Dominic asked, always attuned to her moods. "About how close I came to walking away," she admitted. "How fear almost won. But it didn't," he reminded her, turning her to face him. "You chose courage instead. You chose us." Maya reached up to touch his face, this man who had refused to let her hide from possibility. "Best decision I ever made." As they shared a kiss beneath the winter stars, Maya felt the truth of it settle deep in her bones. She had spent 15 years building walls to protect herself from pain, only to discover that true protection came not from isolation, but from choosing the right partner to face life's challenges with. The journey from that morning in Dominic's office to this wedding night had transformed her in ways she hadn't imagined possible. She had learned that vulnerability wasn't weakness but the deepest kind of strength. That her professional success wasn't diminished by personal happiness but enhanced by it. That love, when built on mutual respect and admiration, didn't confine but liberated. "Ready to go in?" Dominic asked as a chill breeze rippled across the lake. "Our guests are waiting for the send-off." Maya nodded, taking his hand as they turned toward the warm light spilling from the house. Tomorrow they would leave for their honeymoon, 2 weeks in Italy, exploring the country's rich history while connecting with artisans and entrepreneurs for potential partnerships with their foundation. But tonight was for celebration, for marking this milestone in their journey together. As they stepped back inside to the cheers and well wishes of their loved ones, Maya felt a sense of homecoming that transcended physical space. She had finally found home in the truest sense. Not just in the beautiful house they shared in Inman Park or this lake house where their story had deepened, but in the partnership they had built. A partnership founded on mutual respect, shared purpose, and the courage to choose love over fear. If this story of reclaiming your right to both love and success touched your heart, Subscribe to Timeless Love Tales with Mr. Harrison for more stories of resilience, redemption, and real love. Remember, Queens, your professional excellence and personal joy aren't competing priorities. They're complementary strengths. You deserve both. And the most revolutionary act is refusing to settle for anything less.